So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that most of us don't notice this. And why? Because we don't notice the thoughts that we are generating every moment. We don't take time to participate in ourselves, watching the thoughts, expanding its distance from each other. We don't know that because we don't take time to do that. But it's important because once we do the observation of thoughts that are moving before us, we realize the I am within. We realize the I am at the centrality of everything, of all the space-time that you are looking at. You realize that you are not part of the space-time, that I am is excluded out of everything. You realize that I am is the most important place within yourself. There is no other. Now I'm going to record this. I realized that something strange about our universe. Scientists have noticed that the galaxies are moving apart from each other. And you may say that it's because some are moving faster than the other. But that isn't the case. The case is that space itself is expanding. And the reason why galaxies are moving apart from each other is because the space in between them is expanding. If you were to be at the center of space, you will notice that as time moves by, everything around you will recede away from you. The space itself is expanding. And another most interesting thing is that this expansion accelerates the further away the galaxy is at the peripheral of the universe. So they're moving away so much faster, could even be faster than the speed of light. And why they're moving away is not because they're moving, because space-time itself is expanding faster than the speed of light. The implication of what I've just said, to me, is awesome. You see, number one, I'm seeing myself in the center. Okay. But then space-time itself is expanding away from me. So every object that is around me will slowly recede and become further away from me. Do you notice what that implies? That is why the space-time all around me, I am remains at the center. And everything else is moving away from the center. This could well explain why, when a man gets older, more and more of what he wants is getting further away from his will. As a man gets older, he finds himself decaying, so to speak. It's because space-time is simply drifting away from the I am. But of course, if he remains at the I am, he is saved. But somehow, when people are not aware of the I am and they rely on their thoughts, then they discover that as they get older, these thoughts will become more worried and worried. Why? Because it is not getting what he wants. The distance between the beginning and the end increases. So what you desire is further away from what you want. And based on this realization, It is therefore useless for a person to put his mind in order as he gets older, because the mind itself will bring what he wants further away from himself. The mind itself will do that, because the mind is space-time. The solution cannot be found in the mind. It worsens as the man gets older. As I said in my videos, the solution can only be found by a technique which I call the observation of my thoughts. When I observe my thoughts, that's a very important action that we must do. Because when you observe your mind, you actually turn that mind into breath, yourself being breath, and you're instantly back home. What is more important to note is to realize that the physical world in which you lived in, the very fact that space itself can expand, shows to you something mysterious. The very fact that it can expand tells you that you are living in a world created by yourself. It is not exactly what you think it is. Space itself can expand. Can you believe in that? But you have to. That's what quantum physics is today facing. Mind itself is affected by it. We are thinking that the mind can resolve problems, but truth is far from that. In fact, the more the mind grabs into our thoughts to answer a question, the mind itself will be more popular, because the distance expands. Because the distance of one thought to another expands. And you may ask me a question. Why on earth would the distance expands when a man gets older? It makes things so much difficult for everyone. Well, indeed it is true, right? When you get older, your body apparently decays, tears apart, so to speak. You find yourself distanced from your children, more lonelier than you would expect. So how? But there's a reason for all this. Why is the distance expanding? There's a reason for all this. It's to enable the speed of light. When opposites increase their oppositeness, the potential difference increased. And what happens is that there's a great chance of a burst out of the new light. The person himself, upon death, realizing, I am. Before I close this video, I want to say a few things. You see, when you walk on the road, it's obvious to you, physically, space won't expand. A 1 meter will remain a 1 meter. Isn't that right? Yeah. But that's not very true. Something happens into the mind of man. It doesn't happen really in physicalness that you see. It happens in the inner mind. You are actually evaluating the 1 meter that you see a slightly greater distance than it was before. And that's how the mind gets more and more difficult to solve a problem as you get older. Why? Because thoughts distance itself more and more. So in order to capture another thought becomes a problem. You sense it as memory lost. But the truth is that space-time has distanced itself. The second point I want to stress is that as a person gets older, because the distance are further away, he finds it difficult to understand the other party as well. And the other party will also find difficulty to understand him. Many changes have taken place, and our mind finds it difficult to comprehend the other party. We may not know why. Nobody understands why. We may think that we are kind of more selfish, we may say that way. Or we may think that we're more concerned with ourselves. The older folks are more concerned. And as a result, they couldn't understand the other party. We can have many reasons, mental reasons, logical reasons why it becomes difficult to understand each other. But the fact really is that something mysterious is taking place in space-time itself. The distance increased. But to the old man, he can reason out better, because to himself, all through the years, he has seen more things. And so the old man can actually analyze the other party better. So as far as the old man is concerned, he could do it better because he has understood this world better. He has seen it all better. But something is still going wrong. Because the distance is further apart, he just simply realized that he's getting more and more lonely. That the world is now not where he is. And logic cannot really exactly explain this to the old man. Logically, he's a more experienced person, but yet he's lonely. Why? That's what I want you to ask me. That is what I want you to ask that question. Why? Why is it that the universe expands its space as the universe expands further and further away from the centrality? Why? Because the universe wants an implosion. The explosion of the black hole is not enough. It was the initial moment to begin the universe. That was the explosion. But the implosion is necessary to bring about the return to the black hole. You must return to the black hole. You must return to I am. And therefore the potential difference must increase to force the implosion to take place. The man would want to go home because he's so lonely and the world is no longer his partner, so to speak. He feels so alien, he wants to go home. Notice, he's setting the stage for an implosion. He wants to return back home. You see? He doesn't understand why, but somehow to be himself, to be I am, seems more and more soothing for him. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that most of us don't notice this. And why? Because we don't notice the thoughts that we are generating every moment. We don't take time to participate in ourselves, watching the thoughts, expanding its distance from each other. We don't know that because we don't take time to do that. But it's important because once we do the observation of thoughts that are moving before us, we realize the I am within. We realize the I am at the centrality of everything, of all the space-time that you are looking at. You realize that you are not part of the space-time, that I am is excluded out of everything. You realize that I am is the most important place within yourself. There is no other. That's why God said, I am that I am, and there is no other name, no other space-time before me.